Hello, everybody. My name is Funmi Iyanda, and this is Public Eye. Today's conversation is one that I find a bit sobering. It's been over 12 years of the Boko Haram insurgency in Nigeria. In that time, millions of Nigerians have died, mostly from the northeastern part of Nigeria. Over 2 million people have been displaced from their homes. 60% of those displaced are children. A high percent also are women. A lot of the men have been killed or had to leave their community or are too ashamed to even live in the refugee camps. What will it take for people to be able to return to their homes? What will it take for them to be able to reclaim their lives? What will it take for Nigerians living within Nigeria to not be living in a camp outside of their home? That's going to be the conversation on today's show. Join me.
My name is Bukar Alhaji Bukar. I came from Kwandiga local government area. On 11 February 2014, Boko Haram attacking Kwandiga local government area during market day. They killed over 150 or 25 people are killing. Over 125 people are killing, many people are injured. That is the reason that they won't all complete the village. That is the reason that I left Kwandiga to come to the IDP camp and stay up to date.
Sunana Falmata Mustafa, local government namu Kwandiga garin mu Kauri. Da Boko Haram suka kore mu sun kone garin mu muka dawo cikin nan. Mun dawo shekara mu shida nan muke.
We have many changes because in our locality we are farmer and cattle rearing. We have a lot of business, but in the here, just we are living in the camp without anything. We are suffering with the camp because of even a food or drinking of water or toilet. Many things challenge. Yeah, we are suffering even in the toilet. We have only 25 toilets. We are in the camp over 3,500 we are living. Our toilet is only few. You are waiting the people before you are going to use with the toilet. Even this one. Then secondly, lack of school of our children. We are suffering. Thirdly, you see the shelter is very close that no any ventilation. We are suffering about the camp.
Right, welcome back. Our conversation today on Public Eye is around and about internally displaced peoples. Oftentimes when we use the term internally displaced peoples, there's a distancing from what it really means. Because what it means is that millions of people in Nigeria right now, that would be almost 2 million people, have been displaced from their homes. It means that people who had a livelihood, a job, artistry, or a trade, all of them have needed to leave their home to go and live in a camp that is not in their control. And the time and how to return to their homes also is not fully in their control. This is happening in the same country, a part of a country, and sometimes it looks a bit strange because the fact that it is not everywhere means there can be a distancing within the same country. How long will people continue to live in IDPs in Nigeria? Exactly what needs to be done to ensure that the societies and the communities can return to safety so that people can return home and rebuild their life. It's not a conversation that I can have on my own or one that I feel fully competent to have without the people that I have brought into the studio with me today. Both of whom have flown all the way from Maiduguri to have this conversation with us. I'll start with the lady on my left-hand side, and that's Hauwa Magaji. Hauwa is the Executive Director of Initiative for Community Health and Crisis Response, ICHCR. What she does and the organization do is that they focus on providing education to children in IDPs. They try to mitigate and find intervention on gender-based violence within the IDPs, and also skill acquisition, especially for young girls inside IDPs, and referral of IDPs for psychosocial support. She works both in Maiduguri and Jerry. Hello.
Hi.
I'm so happy to see you.
Same here.
You know, and we'll talk. I'm just going to leave it there. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
My second guest is interesting to me on many, many levels, because oftentimes when we're talking about the northeastern part of Nigeria, everybody thinks of some sort of uniformity in religion, in ethnicity, in social circumstance. This is not true. The north of Nigeria is deeply diverse, you know, and the diversity itself is what makes it strong, just like Nigeria makes it interesting and powerful, just like other parts of Nigeria. Mr. Jack Vincent Fidelis is my second guest. He sat on the right. He's lived all his life in Maiduguri. He's a writer, a journalist, and humanitarian worker, born and raised in Maiduguri. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
One of the things I'll say immediately and I start is, you know, in the southern part of Nigeria, when you think, oh, Maiduguri, you think of Hausa Fulani.
Yeah.
Kanuri.
Or Kanuri.
Yeah.
You know, it's not so. This is a question that's contentious in other parts of the world when you say, where are you from?
Yeah, that's true.
But where are your parents originally from?
My parents
in Nigeria?
My parents are Nigerians, and they're originally from the eastern part of Kogi State, Kogi East. My language, my ethnic group is Igala.
Yeah.
And I'm from Kogi State.
Yeah, from
originally.
But you were born in Maiduguri?
Born, raised, bred, everything.
And you have been in Maiduguri through
my whole life.
Your whole life?
I've never lived anywhere else.
So you were there when it all started?
I was reporting on the field right from the time of Mohammed Yusuf, the founder of Boko Haram.
Right.
Yeah.
Hauwa, you have hyper-focused on women and girls and children.
Yeah.
Why?
Basically, we all know that women and girls are the most vulnerable persons in the society. So I think women need to be empowered, girls need to be educated. That's why I gave real focus on educating young girls and educating women on adult education, special adult education sessions with them.
By the statistics I have says that most of the people in the IDPs in Maiduguri are women, because oftentimes the men have been killed.
Yes.
Some of them have had to go and seek, support for family. Some are ashamed to be there.
Yeah.
What is the proportion of men to women in the camp, if you were to guess generally?
Women are much, and women have become head of households. So women get most of the supports given by government and international organizations more than men, because women have a lot of liabilities on them. They have orphans to take care of. They have, they've become even mothers to unaccompanied children and separated children. So I think women and...
Jack, Vincent, you told a story that I read. One of the stories you wrote about.
Okay.
I thought it was a horrible story.
Yeah.
You wrote the story of a man you interviewed who was running away from their own village after they'd been attacked, their own town after they'd been attacked. So they were moving as a group of people.
Yeah.
And when they got into some other parts of the road, the journey, they saw abandoned children crying.
Yeah, that's right.
And some of the children were already dead.
Yeah.
The children were starving and dying.
Yes.
So they buried the children that were dead, and they carried along the rest of the children
That's true.
with them. What happened?
Okay. That happened at the peak of the crisis. When the crisis started, it started in Maiduguri city center. And then we had the civilian JTF who were able to mobilize and chase them out of town. When they left town, they went to local government areas, towns and villages outside Maiduguri. Today, as I speak to you, Maiduguri has become a fortress of sorts, where it is a little bit quite impregnable, so to speak. And now, when these people went back there, the terrorists understand that they are there and they are vulnerable. So they took advantage of this. This happened when Baga was attacked. There was a time Baga was attacked and over 2,000 people died. It happened very close to when that Charlie Hebdo stuff happened in France. So it wasn't given a big coverage like that of France at the time, but it was a worse scenario. So when this thing happened, these people were killed wholesale. The few that were able to do so left that place for the safety of Maiduguri. That was the time. Maiduguri to Baga. Baga is very close to Chad Republic. Baga is a border town with Chad Republic. So these people had to trek to Maiduguri. And in the course of doing this, it took them days. They had no food to eat. They had no drugs if they were sick. So that was why that thing happened. So I stumbled on these people and I had to interview them. That was when I got this story of how people were murdered, massacred, so to speak, and how there was starvation and how there was disease and these children died.
Right.
Yes.
What was Maiduguri, all the areas where, that became the heart of, I don't even know the word to use, it's terrorism. What were these areas like before all of this?
Before the insurgents?
Before Boko Haram, before the insurgents, what was it like? What was life like?
Okay, some Nigerians may not know, but the motto for Borno State is Home of Peace. And it was really peaceful. Life was very okay. Maiduguri is a cosmopolitan city. You have every Nigerian resident there. So there were hotel life, nightlife, there were even clubs. People were living peacefully. Southerners were doing their business and doing it very well. Life was as good as anywhere else. So wonderful. Good reason you find people like me in Maiduguri who were not originally from there, but were born there and have lived there and have not wanted to live anywhere else.
Hauwa, what was it like for a woman in Maiduguri before the insurgents started?
It was a lively life for a woman. Women are basically independent. They have access to all the good life that it's given out there, and then they have access to education. They live their life freely. They go about their activities freely. They don't get harassed. They don't get intimidated because they have not worn their head ties or worn gele or anything. And then it was a very, very peaceful and comfortable life for a woman to go about all your activities then.
When did it start to change? And what changed for women first?
As soon as the then Boko Haram leader started advocating for his sermons and all that, so it started with the mode of dressing. A woman can't go about comfortably wearing her trousers or going out without wearing full hijab to some parts of Maiduguri without being harassed by the members of Boko Haram. So you need to seriously cover up, wearing long hijab, cover your face before gaining access to some areas. And it gradually started going to other areas within Maiduguri. So women tend to not even go out. They prefer staying at home because they are afraid of being harassed by the boys. You can meet a young boy that is basically the age of your son harassing you, trying to beat you up because you've not worn the hijab, or you've not dressed the way their women dress. So it was really challenging for women when it started.
Well, it always seems to start with women. Any society that starts with repressing women start to watch what might go on there, in that regard. But I didn't, because Boko Haram, the insurgency, the insecurity that has ensued, the breakdown in trust even between different parts of the country that has all come out of all of this is a big topic. Yes. And we wanted to make sure that we actually narrowed it down to people rather than making big about the topic. So I want to go back to people themselves and when people's lives changed. Did anybody foresee, watching on ground and reporting, did anybody foresee how bad it was going to get? Was there any point where anybody could have pulled the reins in?
Yes. You see, when Nigerians started knowing that there was trouble in Borno State was after the clash the insurgents had with the government in 2009. Prior to this time, we started knowing this thing as far back as 1999, when democracy returned. Before democracy, it was a military era, and not everybody was bold enough to go doing what they were doing. So when democracy came, they felt, okay, now they have the freedom to talk and do things the way they want. There were preachers at street corners in Maiduguri at the time who were very controversial. But because of what religion is to the people in that part of the country, everybody was being careful because it was a very sensitive topic over there. So gradually, we knew, ordinary people on the streets in Maiduguri at the time knew that trouble was brewing. If nothing was done, we were going to end up seeing it very bad. It continued like that until the formation of these so-called Boko Haram people. When Boko Haram started, it was as far back as 2002. In 2002, they went to a place called Kanema in Yobe State. That was where they were clad in special turbans, and they looked unique with their goatee and their trouser above the ankle and on these special features about them. And then they were radical. Before that period, nobody was bold enough to come out like that. But as of 2002, Mohammed Yusuf and some of his followers, they did that. So Obasanjo government and then the government of the day in Borno State at the time chased them away from that place in 2002. That was when they now left to the Goza Mountains, where they are currently. Goza Mountains, including the Sambisa Forest and all that. So they now went there from Kanema. Some of them came into town. The ones in town, they lived like everybody else, except for their ideology. Their white turban at the time was for the civilians among them. Then black turban was for the military among them. Red turbans for the police among them. We knew all these things. We lived with them. I bought my first Android phone from one of such people with a turban. These are Boko Haram people we knew. Then it now led to February 18, 2006 crisis. This crisis occurred because of the Danish cartoon, if you remember. The cartoon was drawn in Denmark by an atheist, and then these people started killing people. Over 100 people died that day. People who died were killed by neighbors of 10, 15, 20 years. That was when we knew there was a problem. And now they became bold. They were disobeying conventional society. They had their own society. There was a time federal government said people on bikes should have helmets. They said they were not going to put helmet on the turban. It became a problem that led to the death of some of their people. And after that period, they started becoming violent. Gradually, 2 policemen will die today, 1 soldier man will die tomorrow, and then the problem escalated. And there's something about terrorism I noticed. It's like extreme fear. So much so that only 10 people can terrorize the entire Lagos state. It's just a matter of placing this bomb here, blowing this place. People become scared of going out. Nobody knows who will die next. It was like that at some point in Maiduguri.
We cannot go into what then happened after
Yeah,
that, because
yeah.
we all, at least as Nigerians, we know how it escalated and it became horrible, around the bombings. And since then, the Nigerian government, as well as international organizations, have been trying on one hand to contain the insurgency, crush the terrorism, as well as support people who are losing their homes, who have lost their families. There are lots of orphans in IDPs, lots of children, who have no parents, lots of women have been abused, have been raped. It's not good at all. What I want to ask now is the current situation. I know you have a brother that's in the army.
Yes.
What is that like, actually, having a brother in the army, given the fatality rate?
Okay. It was really terrible. An experience I don't wish for anybody. My brother came to Maiduguri and was at the front line. He started from Gudumbali, the place where some boys were killed in Yobe State. Remind me. Okay, so he came there and was there for some time. He went to Bama, went to Sambisa, and then ended up in a place called Ngoshi at the Goza Mountains. From there, from that place, I communicate with him. They use the Cameroonian network because it's a border town. So if I hear from him, I feel this sense of relief. If I don't hear from him, I don't know what happens. Anytime I hear Ngoshi in the news, I go to read. You will see soldiers there was a bomb blast and soldiers died. Now I want to know whether my brother was one of them. And this young man had a wife with twins that he has not seen. He didn't see for like 2 years after they were giving birth to. It was a very terrible experience. It was really very terrible. Nobody should live to have that kind of experience. All over Maiduguri, all over Borno State, there was this same issue with people. And there are people I know personally. My father was actually a soldier. I grew up in the barracks. So most of these people who died are people I grew up with, people I knew. They die. Their family don't get to even know until sometimes a month or two after they were buried. It was like that at some point, you see.
Hauwa, what is the IDP condition now like? What is life like there for people? I know we read that there are some resettlements going on, and that the people we have interviewed as our foot soldiers have talked to, a lot of it is a story of woes. People say that the facilities are inadequate. There are cases of abuse. Some of it have been reported in the news in the past. There are issues of mismanagement of resources for people in IDP. The challenge is that you don't want a situation where an IDP becomes permanent. There are societies where they've had refugee camps for decades because those societies just didn't settle back. To start with, what is the life like for people in the IDPs now that you're working with, especially women?
Okay, their life is, what can they do? Their life is not okay. Leaving your community that you were born, grew up with your family, your husband, and then coming as a mother to a lot in a place that you've never been to. But then they've built a strong resilience of the situation they found themselves with the support of international organizations. They get a lot of access to healthcare services. They get access to education, access to economic empowerment. They give them training. They build their capacities on the GBV because most people limit gender-based violence to sexual abuse. There are other types of GBV, so they go through all these trainings on how to take care of their girls, preventive measures and all that. So their life is not really as beautiful as before, but they are strong and they are happy
What are
with the
chances
situation that they found
they
themselves.
found themselves in? How many people are able to return to the community? Are there people actually returning now? Is
Yeah,
there support for people to return? And is the community safe for them to return to?
the safety is not really guaranteed, but then people are returning. Some people prefer to return back to their communities than staying at the IDP camps, especially the local governments that are accessible. So life there is not as good as staying at the IDP camp in Borno, but they feel more comfortable since there's a bit of security, safety. There are local vigilante groups that are very strong, that have taken ownership of the communities, and then they are already empowered with small grants, and they've learned various skills. So the resettled people are trying to adapt to the new life they've found themselves in.
That's very interesting because I'm going to ask the right people in terms of when there was some kind of concerted effort and things started changing.
Yeah.
What stopped that? You know, how secure is life in Maiduguri now compared to, there are different stages, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right now, what percentage would you say it is?
Within Maiduguri and Jere LGA, it's very, very secure. I think I can say 95% or 100% secure. People are living peacefully, life is normal, all activities is going on, schools have resumed, hospitals are well equipped, and everybody is living a normal life. Even clubs are functioning, hotels are functioning, and then women are not being really harassed, except otherwise. So I think.
What do you mean, except otherwise?
Except at the IDP camps where they go into a kind of sex work kind of thing to get access to financial funds and others with people that have the capacity to do that for them. If they don't have the card, they normally give them cards to get access to some activities, and then when they are not able to get that, they go into a kind of prostitution.
They're exploited. Because
yes,
it's an exploitation,
yes,
because this is about food and living.
Yes, they are
and all
exploited.
You can, yeah.
So I think without that, life is very, very normal and secured in Maiduguri.
And then there's the 10:30 curfew. If not for that, life is normal.
Not for that, life is
normal. And we understand the curfew. It's necessary.
Right. Do you foresee an end to the refugee camps themselves, the internally displaced people's camp itself, so that people can then there will be no need for a camp? Do you see that happening soon?
Yes, because initially we have about
9 or 10
camps, government-controlled camps. That's formal camps. But now I think we have only three formal or 4 formal camps. Yeah. Most of the people that were initially staying at the other camps were resettled back to their communities or have been fully empowered, and they've started living their lives normal, renting houses and all that. And then gradually, the government is doing its best to resettle most of the IDPs to their communities.
What will it take to get everybody back home?
Back to their communities?
To their communities. What will it take?
It will take suppressing the insurgency. If we don't do that, I don't see it's not feasible to resettle everybody. Because as I speak to you, there are still places that are inaccessible. And there are even the accessible places, not everywhere, just like garrison towns, where if you go out of, you are likely to fall into danger. So such things are the reason this thing may prolong, coupled with the fact that there are people who benefit from it. Some people have become millionaires today. Regular people on the streets are now millionaires because of this crisis. Such people will not want this thing to end. The terrorists, they get fuel. They get supplies, they get logistics from Maiduguri because of the kind of people within the city who collaborate with them. You see, if these whole things are in place, I don't see this thing ending anytime soon. That is if I want to be realistic.
Right. You seem to agree.
Yes, yes.
So there's a political connotation to it, and until you crush that incentive, then it might be difficult to actually win it on a military level. That's what you're saying.
That too.
That too has connotations, you know, because there's an economy around it also.
Of course,
now.
there is.
All right, we need to take a break. When we come back from the break, we'll be talking with Professor Umara Gudumbali. So Professor Gudumbali, we just want him to kind of, you know who he is.
Very well.
Very well.
Yeah.
You smiled when I was mentioning it.
I used to have a show like this, Maiduguri. He used to be my guest.
Yeah. So
Great man.
So we're going to talk with him. You will help me, since you know very well, because we want to see, so we know what to take to the authorities as what the people have said, what the people would like, what the people know.
That's true.
You know, and how, if they really wanted to do something, what next and what more is there to do. We'll take a break.
Usu indala abba utara kandigai dalil do yanda na lo surna Boko Haram andia duzna lo ishi kishen de fal kawar mai da kampu na fande yishin nafkai alhamdulillah amma yishin nan yana amma cha fande na ma monzu ranya balanyar walce na maraye amma kwan san lewa do dina fande inda anja ga nasu dan naftin dina ade yan ma a kujura ga nafkai cha monjin ma le fande nan yana shi maraye de saka da u iske namge cikan kampu kawar mai lang kasun yi gana fande ke dikin amma ta cha na yin buroi fande kai kwansa cha na yin buroi fande kana ma shi maraye
Uma haja Hauwa baba gana kampu kawar mai lailan karako aure ande kampu kawar mai la Allah sunna Boko Haram ande duzu kusuro na mena har kusa ande alaman na kusa uwede iskana har ko an gaira kari ko kawo iskana surodin sanya ya na alhamdulillah au kada surodin den na karai ande bana dai na kai makarai zawa son na nyende ishena liena blande ro wolte ya ra ina suror man kara ya kumaro suror man na mera ala ya ndia kalak sana ma sa pe blande ro wolte na mara ya kumaro suror man kara na mera kampa kawar mai laila kama amdo andia kororo isana maswari ya sayro tayra nge sayro askar ngana sayro gode ngana isa ya andia sori ne kala na sayro kawdi ndia yenne andiro gana bana za so asasadine na mera kumaro ishena ari surorin kana zai sanya kadari na zawa ndia sa gana dudu titian biya andia am sai gana ndia bana zai na kai masoron karai amma sabulan ndia nam ngana dun wuri tela dikin do ko bulale skana dai keke tela irfan duka idiya su dole ro zawa da ciriko har ko an gaira kare kumaro zawa ma dutukin na karako ngala nyero askar ngala nyero isu kaladan danu andia korin kullum soro isu kawri ndia moyin ar nyero taida nyero askar nyena dalin zuri isu andia koru wasoro wollo no ma kawri ndia so kutun ndia so awndela so notuman non wow isu andia koru ndia suk taida nye ka jindo fa nyena kuru nyero askar nyena taida nyema ngala gode ngana.
Right, welcome back. We're being joined on the program now by Professor Umara Ibrahim Gudumbali. He is a professor of political science at the University of Maiduguri and vice chairman of the high-powered committee on the reform of almajiri schools. Professor, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Nice meeting you.
You too, Professor. I mean, the first thing they told me about you is that you were an almajiri.
Yes, of course. We are never going to be former almajiris. I was and I am. I'm still in an almajiri system.
Right. And you are a professor of political science. I hear that political science is not your only forte, that you also have capacity for teaching in pharmacy, engineering, history, law, and sociology. Is this true?
You know, sometimes it is a common general knowledge at certain level for you to explain certain phenomenon outside your discipline. So it is this rudimentary aspect that we use to touch in some instances. It's not the proper subject matter that we dovetail to discuss out. Yes, it's at the rudimentary level.
Professor, pardon me if I sound ignorant. Why is it that you were and are an almajiri and we don't have more almajiri like you. What we see are the children on the streets destitute. What we hear of are the children who were recruited by Boko Haram. How come all almajiris did not become like you?
You see, this is the huge misinformation that is circulating around the country. Almajiris were never Boko Haram. Boko Haram recruited those that were vulnerable, those that were parading themselves as almajiris. It is very unfortunate. Up to now, the Nigerian media nor the Nigerian government really identify who the almajiris are and who are the street children. You see, when you are talking about Boko Haram recruiting almajiris, then what about the Niger Delta militants? Are they also recruiting almajiris? What about the OPC? Are they also recruiting almajiris? What about the Plateau people survival movement? Are they also recruiting almajiris? So almajiris were just victims of circumstances, and they were never identified with all the social biases that the Nigerian media is speculating about.
There's also the conversation that a lot of early Boko Haram recruitment happened amongst actually well-educated young men and some women in the University of Maiduguri, your university.
You see, the problem again is, I will still go back to the speculation, particularly of the misinformation surrounding around the entire insurgency movement. First of all, Boko Haram is a creation of the Nigerian state, number one. Number two, it was before the Nigerian state that these people at the initial stages were allowed by the Nigerian state to do what they think they can. They were mini-state within the Nigerian state. They have prison cells, they have police, they have prison warden, and they were all engaged in exercises and training before the Nigerian police headquarters. They usually start by 4 a.m. and terminate around 7 to 8 a.m. Everybody was watching, everybody was seeing, everybody was warning the federal government. That led to series of arrests of its leadership. But because of certain circumstances, maybe because of the dependent democracy or so-called democracy that we claim to be professing, that those people who were threatening national securities were given on bail, and that led to the flaring up of the issue, vertically and horizontally. Vertically, political rivalry between the northern political establishment and the southern political establishment. Horizontally, between the religious faction that tend to see each of it as an opposite and opposition to one another. So they fail to see it as a national issue, to deal with it and respond to it nationally. And that led to the escalation of the security crisis. So do not blame almajiris. Almajiris were victims of circumstances like any other Nigerian that may be lured into engaging in unlawful activities within and outside the region.
So, Professor, that's why I want to zero in on the opinions that we should be putting forward. From what you have said, you're saying that there's an international dimension where it is possible that this global armed trade targets some countries for conflict, and I think Nigeria is one of that. You think also that there is some sort of the religious connotation whereby there are also international religious ideologies and groups who have interest in penetrating different territories for their own purpose. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then, of course, you're talking about us not being distracted by narratives of ethnicity and all of that, because this is a war. This is a war about the soul and the existence of Nigeria. So the question is, what should we do? Who should do what needs to be done?
It is a collective responsibility on all of us. Particularly, I am always disturbed if I often hear, either on social media or on the conventional media, prominent Nigerians are out to condemn our armed forces and other security forces. I will be glad if you can come into Maiduguri with your cameras to visit my Malari Contentment Cemetery to see the level of casualties of our brothers and sisters that have sacrificed in the front line. I will also appreciate if Nigerians should learn to boost the morals of those who have sacrificed to defend the territorial integrity, to promote stability and peaceful coexistence amongst Nigerians. But it seems like we have a secret agenda of deconstructing identity, of creating censorship and stereotypes against some ethnic groups and some regions in the country. Right now, at the inception of the Boko Haram insurgency, of course, all the Kanuris are 100% Muslims. We were tagged as either Boko Haram or Boko Haram sympathizers without adequate intelligence. Even though it is the Kanuris that suffered the brunt of Boko Haram insurgency, it was given a religious and tribal connotation until when it becomes clear. Now the issues of herdsman is also trying to create stereotype and censorship against the Fulani ethnic group. Not all Fulani ethnic groups are herders. Not all Fulani ethnic groups or herders are bandits. And therefore, if we can condemn individual attitudes and behaviors to be equal to collective community responses, we are only creating a rift between our communities, and this will also endanger national security. So it is now left on the Nigerian intellectuals, the Nigerian media, the who and the who, to please caution on what they say, to see the implications. Whatever happens, we only see it within the perspective that we are looking at it. It may not be whole. A comment that you are going to make will anger and endanger retaliation. And this will tend to create people or make people to go back to their cocoon to mobilize for populism. And when people mobilize along ethnic affiliation, it will do more harm to our national coexistence than for us to promote. So now, the security forces, first of all, should be supported. We are in a country of 200 million people. We have less than 500,000 soldiers. This is completely unacceptable. Boost the force posture of the Nigerian armed forces. Give them the matching and corresponding weaponry for them to confront the issue. Number three, this war that they are fighting is called ultra-modern warfare. It's not a conventional warfare that needs the deployment of heavy equipment. It is a warfare that is fighting within, not outside, without an identified territory or theater. They may be from within. And they give intelligent information on the movement of our men and equipment. And they run away to regroup and reappear somewhere. So it is a warfare that needs to be tackled with some, what we call radio frequency interceptor, interdiction and identification of unwholesome movement, absolute and accurate control of our airspaces, and above all, for us to have our independent satellite that will monitor the movement than relying on goodwill and friendly satellite that is hovering our own airspaces. Because those who are calling themselves as development partners or good friends of Nigeria, they also have their interest. And their interest will only be furthered by dividing us. Because right now there is a channel of communication between the so-called Nigerian friends and these insurgents, the bandits and the abductors. They communicate to them, they also communicate to our government. They should have helped us to create a communication link between the Nigerian state and those who feel they were aggrieved, either they are insurgents, terrorists, bandits, or whatsoever. If they are really Nigerian friends, let them link the communication channel between the Nigerian state and those people so that the Nigerian state will take absolute responsibilities of finding a lasting solution than for them to be meddling between, showing to Nigerian government they are our friends, and at the same time in the principles and doctrine of neutrality, supplying food needs, medical needs, and perhaps even cash to those in the bush that are terrorizing us. So it is for the international communities to change their attitudes and behaviors toward bringing the security irritants to an end. And it is also for the Nigerian political class and intellectual class to know what they are going to talk about. And it is for the Nigerian political leadership and you in the media to stop demoralizing our men that have been sacrificing their life for them to bring a lasting peace to our country.
Professor, I wanted to make sure, I wanted you to get all of this out, you know, and I hear everything, and I think everybody hears everything you have said. The bit I want you to leave us with now is, whose responsibility is it to spearhead this process that needs to happen in terms of, one, curtailing the international media, the international community's support process for Nigeria, not just curtailing is the wrong word, but kind of like managing it better with a view to what other people's agenda may be, on one hand. Two, reorganizing the military effort for it to be, one, have the capacity it needs, two, have the sort of intelligence, you know, on the ground intelligence it needs to be able to fight this kind of unusual warfare.
And then the commitment.
Yes, and I hear everything you have to say about the media. I being a part of the media, I understand what you're saying. You know, what I want to know is, because at the end of the day, a state, the people of a state have handed the Commonwealth to the government. What should the government do? What should the people do? Recently, the minister for...
Need to be serious. Yes. I can get you now. The primary responsibilities of protecting the lives and properties of the citizens squarely lies with the government. There's no doubt about that. The government needs to change its attitude, particularly the institutions of governance. There are ongoing, unfortunate circumstances in the governance processes of this country. When a country is fighting a war in different fronts, when you have an overstretched armed forces, what the nation should do is to focus on bringing national security and stability.
Professor? Yeah. We've lost him. We've lost him. We're going to take a short break. When we come back from the break, I will have my studio guest back on to look at, you know, it says something powerful. These conflicts, you know, are everywhere. Every region seems to be up in arm one way or the other, and the insurgency is at the apex, you know, of parts of it. So really, I still have the same question at the end of the day: who should do what? Right after the break. Welcome back. I won't say that this edition of the show is an emotionally difficult one for me. I mean, in the studio, I think that even our director is from Borno, part of your... there are people here. We're all Nigerians. I'm sad. You know, I'm sitting there trying to understand my emotions, and I'm feeling like I'm sad because I feel a sort of helplessness, you know, and I can feel that Nigerians feel also a sense of helplessness about the whole of this issue. Is there hope? Let me start with you, Howard. What's your own hope? And what gives you that hope? And if you have no hope, feel free to say so.
There's hope. There's hope. That's if the government will take the issue very well, will make the issue of the insurgency a high priority, will make the issue of women and young people to be their number one priority, massive economic empowerment of women, free education for all. So security and safety and others. Yeah. I think there's hope.
Yeah. Do you think there's hope?
Yes.
Vincent?
I think there is hope. And what informed this decision is the resilience of the people. The people, despite all this problem, are very resilient. There may be bomb blasts, there may be deaths, But the very next day, you see people going about their usual lives as if nothing happened the day before. So that alone gives hope. Another thing is the right equipment for the right people to do their work. It will give us hope as well. Because there is this thing, a battalion of 100 soldiers can do what a brigade of 1,000 soldiers cannot do if they are not well armed. So we need arms. And then I understand that the Tucano choppers will soon be in Nigeria this year, and it will help to redefine the war, just like the T-72 tanks used by the late Lieutenant Colonel Abu Ali redefined the war. When that never again became a mantra, and the parts of Borno State that were taken over by these terrorists were reclaimed because T-72 weapons were brought in. You understand how these things work? So if the right armaments are brought into the country and given to the right people, there is definitely hope. I see us turning this thing around.
Right. I'm going to say on behalf of at least the media bit that I do hope that my colleagues in the media, or my colleague in the media, Hadra Ahmed, you know, she wrote a very powerful piece recently, and she did a video about it too, where she spoke about it. Because, I mean, because we have been long enough in the media to have seen what happened with other countries. Yes. I recall what happened with Rwanda, where, you know, people, once you keep saying this person did this on the basis of ethnicity or religion, you stoke hate.
That's true.
And then other people who are benefiting, and oftentimes there are people who are benefiting, usually economically, from all of this, can then ride on the back of that into victory on their side, but total chaos for countries. One of the things that I have never forgotten was the late Ambassador Olusola, who told me the first time he walked into a refugee camp, and there was a man who walked towards him, was talking about it. They were on a queue, and just before this boy and the girl walked towards him, the girl, one of them, I can't remember if it was the girl or the boy, dropped down and died. And the person who was behind the child said to him, called him his first name, Shola. And he was like, not Olushola, he called him, and he was like, I don't know you. And the man was like, you do know me. It turned out the man on the queue after the dead child was one of his own colleagues in the diplomatic corps. But his country fell into war, and he himself became a victim and a refugee within his own country. So I think that the conversation, for us to do this show today, we have to anchor it around IDPs so that we can have a gentle place to take it from, but it's a difficult issue. At the end of the day, I don't think 200 million people can move into other countries. I don't think it's possible.
No.
You know, and I don't think other countries will take it.
No.
In that regard. So I thank you for coming all the way from Maiduguri.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you also, Hauwa, for coming all the way. And a special message to your brother and your family. I cannot imagine what that is like. Where you don't know, you know. How long has he been fighting now?
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope that your brother and the others win.
Amen.
And I hope we win. You know, that's going to be our show for the day. You know what to do. We can extend this conversation. We will extend the conversation. You can join us on all our social media platforms, from Facebook to Twitter to Instagram. It's Public Eye NG. That's where you will find us. Take care of yourself. We're watching you. Watch yourself. Bye-bye now.